That day in Lake Ijevsk should have been like so many others: laughs, barbecue, and the illusion that family is synonymous with protection. But they turned everything into a nightmare from which my 8-year-old daughter hardly escaped. While I struggled to get out of cold water, choking with the background mud, my sister Anna laughed on the bank, crossing her arms with that sarcastic smile I had known since childhood, the same one she wore when I hid my notebooks or accused me of lying about homework. My mother, adjusting impeccable hair, just grunted, "Stop exaggeration, Lilia. Your little princess will appear." My father, with a red face of anger and beer, spit the words like poison, "Stop embarrassing the family. Always finding confusion for nothing." They pushed us. Anna and her husband, Semyon, with that ridiculous staging of 1, 2, 3 before throwing us into the water as if it were a harmless joke. Kira, my daughter, disappeared under the blurred surface. I drowned in panic, diving over and over, while the soaked dress pulled me to the bottom like a deadly weight. Each time it emerged, panting, begging for help, they only shrugged. "It must be hiding," said Anna, as if it was normal for a child to play drowning. "You've always been dramatic," added my mother, more concerned with bright nail polish than her own granddaughter's life. When I finally called 112, my hands trembled so much that I could barely dial. My father advanced against me, his belly swinging with each step, threatening, "Will it spoil everyone's day because of a pyroka? Keep your problems at home." But Kira wasn't kidding. She was missing. And as the sirens approached, they arranged their things with a sick tranquility, keeping chairs, packing remains of food, acting as if nothing had happened. "Always doing scene," my mother murmured, sticking the last salad container in her bag. If I had watched the girl better, none of this would have happened. It was hours of anguish to the divers of the rescue team to find Kira, unconscious, the purplish lips, the body trembling with cold and fear. A head trauma. Hypothermia. Water in the lungs. The doctors were clear: the next 48 hours would be critical. And while my daughter was fighting for life in the ICU, not a connection. Not a message. Anna even posted photos of the perfect day on social networks, carefully cutting any trace of what they had done. My mother commented with hearts, "The Semyon barbecue was divine, as always." Kira woke up with nightmares. He shouted in the middle of the night, clinging to me like I was his only anchor in a world that had tried to drown it. "Mom, I drowned," was the first thing I said. The second, "Why did Aunt Anna push me?" I had no answer to her. But I had a promise to myself. 2 years earlier, my divorce left me with Kira's full guard and some irregular pension exchanges. He worked as a legal assistant in a small office, which specializes in damages for damages. My boss, Arthur Overchin, was always understanding. "Stay with your daughter the time you need," he said when I called the hospital. But as I saw Kira struggle between life and death, something inside me broke. It was no longer about recovery. It was about justice. The police investigation filed the case as accident during a bath. Witnesses did not remember the details. Their version coincided, a carelessness, nothing more. But I knew the truth. And while Kira slept, I dived into another search, this one, by evidence. My family has always been careless of their secrets. Anna and Semyon sunk in debt, despite the photos of vacation in Turkey and the new SUV. My mother, with her lamb skin and suspicious bank accounts, sporting trips and renovations that her accountant's salary. Church would never pay. They thought they could laugh, push a child into the water and go unpunished. But they underestimated one thing: I knew every crack of the system. And now, with the fury of a betrayed mother and the accuracy of those who spend the days by analyzing legal breaches, I would destroy them. Not with tears or supplications. With strategy. With evidence. With the same coldness with which they turned their backs to my daughter drowning. Because some debts are not paid for money. And mine, they would pay with everything. They thought they were above the laws, that their dirty schemes were invisible, that their jokes about optimization and flexibility were just family games. But I had already learned one thing: the world is full of people who find themselves untouchable until someone decides to drag them into the light. Kira's mother, with her 30,000 rubles as an accountant of the church, loved to tell at family meetings as created reports with an artistic touch. The father, head of storage at an Izhevsk radio factory, one of those places where things that should not be seen by strange eyes are produced, boasted from their special agreements with suppliers, how to adjust the numbers so that no one noted. It implied that it had extra incomes, but it never went into detail. Uncle Leonid rented apartments for students near Udmurtia State University, but only 4 Slavic couples, only Russian citizens, as he wrote in Avito's ads. Former Imelins denounced him in forums for theft of deposits and humiliations. Aunt Diana, owner of a traditional catering, had Rospotrobnada processes for sanitary violations, while former employees counted on wage forums under the table and late payments. Nephew Boris, a computer student, sold miraculous vitamins for tests since high school, with poorly disguised ads on VK and Telegram. In the university group, they spoke of him bluntly, shot in duty. A web of rot, each with his small fraud, convinced that the system was theirs. "We have people everywhere," repeated the father, like a mantra. Meanwhile, Kira woke up shouting, refused to shower, trembled when he saw puddles. The pediatrician of the children's clinic referred it to a psychotherapist. For SUS, just an appointment with the psychiatrist on duty, the rest, paid. I found Anna Ruvenskaya, private therapist. 3,000 per session. There was no choice. "She has all the signs of post-traumatic stress disorder," said Ruvenskaya, while I watched the photos of her Sochi vacation on the feed. In the background, an inflatable boat with Yamaha engine, minimum 140,000. Where would this money take a woman who, according to herself, barely paid the mortgage? I started to assemble the dossier. Whatever could be legally obtained, Egrol extracts, social networking prints, Yandex Maps reviews, Pravosudie gas processes, forum reports, Udmurtskaya Pravda cutouts. My law of law had never been so useful. I knew exactly where and how to strike. The first anonymous signal was for the economic security of the Izhevsk radio factory. Details about the special agreements of the father with the son-in-law construction company, suggestions for revising inventory control, especially considering the financial difficulties of the family. In a factory with defense contracts, any suspicion is taken seriously. The audit found exactly what I expected: systematic deviation from materials through lounge companies. The tests were in their own system, no one had been given the work of crossing the data before. The father was fired in a week for loss of confidence, according to Article 81 of the Labor Code. Security escorted him through the front door in front of the entire team. The factory filed a complaint to the police, advanced appropriation, Article 160 of the PEN Code. AL, in addition to a civil action for damages. Dad was fired with shame. He wimped Anna on the phone with her mother, who had unknowingly turned on the Vivi as he fried meatballs. Someone has reported, but they found serious things. The investigator has already called him. He who doesn't cry now, cut Lena, the sister. The irony was hurting. The following week, an anonymous complaint came to Izhevsk's holiday. Attachments, mothers' posts on Odnoklasniki, displaying expensive shopping, and their jokes on creative accounting, shared by parishioners. The eparchial council ordered a surprise audit. The break, 480,000 rubles. It was not difficult to find him, it was enough to look. The mother's call for testimony became headline: under Mikhailovsky's accountant is investigated for diversion of funds. The eparchy filed a complaint. Article 160 again. The mother received a notification of non-departure from the country. Anna borrowed money to a lawyer, further sinking her family. "I can't believe this is happening," read her mother aloud at Sunday lunch while Kira and I watched, sitting at the table. "This is a frame. Someone ordered the destruction of our family." Anna agreed, gesturing in the tight kitchen of the Khrushchev apartment. "First Daddy, now you. It's obvious that it's an order." They suspected everyone: competitors, enemies, bad people. Of all, except the right person. The IRS of Udmurtia received a detailed report on Uncle Leonid's rents, discriminatory ad prints, testimonials from tenants on cash payments without note. Fines and interest, 300,000 rubles. He had to sell an apartment in a hurry. The prosecution was interested after digestion students denounced discrimination. Fine of 15,000, little money, but enough to make it paranoid. Someone wants to sink us, he repeated on family barbecues while Anna posted everything on VK. Aunt Diana's catering Ruira after Rospotrobnada receives a dossier with violations taken from work forums. Their errors were in the inspection records, in the sight of anyone. This is a nightmare, she read in another family meeting, where I casually appeared. Who did you know about my business? Simple answer, anyone with access to Google. The sale of Boris's miraculous supplements was exposed when University Security received a compilation of VK Group prints. The students had talked about him for months. I only organized the information and sent it. My son is ruined, Anna howled at another crisis meeting, while Kira and I was by chance. This is ordering. We need to find out who's behind. The father called a former police colleague, Maxim Veburov, who now solved problems on the outside. Veburov agreed to investigate, interview people, to get clues. Who did you fight with? Who could you want this? He asked, taking tea in his mother's kitchen. The family made a list, father's heads, the church's priest, Leonid tenants, Diana's competitors. Dozens of names. They mentioned my passage name, that incident on the lake, but it has nothing to do. Veburov dug for months, sucking the little money left. Paranoia grew. The debts too. And me. I just sighed on the phone, playing the solidarity relative. What a nightmare, hold on there. The mention of Kira always caused a break. Anna's voice changed, as she had changed herself. But it is getting better, slowly, I said, with the accuracy of those who measure each syllable. The psychologist helps, but is still afraid of water. An embarrassing silence. Then Anna quickly diverted to her own misfortunes. The fault was there, buried deep, but it was. I came back to the family dinners with Kira next door. We were silent, listening to their whispers about debt and processes. Lily, congratulations on holding on, said Diana one night. In the mother's house, then of those events on the lake. Of the accident. They had convinced themselves. Just an accident. She has always been so patient, Lena added, swallowing a cord. Since I was a little girl with everything silent. Precise observation. I could stand it, years of jokes, of humiliations disguised as a joke. The lake was the final drop. Kira's therapy was the perfect alibi. While she was in session, I planned in the corridors. While playing at home, I collected information. Children process trauma in different ways, explained Dr. Ruvenska. They can suppress now and explode in adolescence. I wrote down everything. Kira would need help for years. Help, man. Every penny the family spent on lawyers was a penny stolen from my daughter. Veburov was more insistent. He called, asked, family conflicts. Resentments. No, nothing special, I said, Serena. We don't fight. What about the lake? The heart jump, but the voice did not shivered. Kira plunged badly. It scared everyone, but it all worked out, thank God. Family pays. His question stopped in the air. What pretensions? In water, these things happen. Good thing they reacted fast. Easy running half-truth. They reacted after I already screamed like crazy. Vubiarov crossed me from the list. Single mother with sick daughter, where would you take strength for revenge? Your conclusions served me. Without results, the family sank for good. Anna suspected that Semyon hid debt. Semyon suspected Anna had a lover. The mother speculated if her father still moved with chemistry out there. Is it our fault? Leonid muttered to the table, beating his fist. Years living in the illegality. Bam! The father punched the table. Shut up. We killed ourselves from working, and now some envious. Maybe it's Lilka? The question fell like a knife. Everyone tensed themselves. Anna coughed nervously. Father, for God's sake. Lily already has too much problems. Yeah, problems that don't stop her from unharmed, he said, narrowing his eyes. Why does no one touch her? Semyon snorted, let it. Lily doesn't hurt a fly. It's the shy. Shy. Weak. Harmless. Words that served me as a shield. The mother interrupted, don't fight. They are sharing us on purpose. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. I heard everything from the next room, where I had taken Kira to play. In the Khrushchevkas, the walls are cardboard. Boria sank in the drink after being expelled from college. He turned on drunk, whimpering. Once, he died to his mother in front of me, someone inside. It's strange that you haven't hit everyone. Later, the mother subtly probed. I pretended offense. How can you think? We are family. Of course, she rushed on. Your father is nervous, you know. I understand, I nodded, compassionate. People need explanations when misfortune knocks on the door. It is easier to blame someone than to accept chance. Yeah, bitch shit, life is unfair, Bordu Boria on the phone. And cruel. Silence. You could hear the bottleneck by hitting your teeth. Sometimes I think, what if it wasn't an accident? What if anyone is slowly destroying us? Who would do such a thing? I asked, neutral. I don't know. Maybe we wounded someone in the past. Someone who waited for the right moment. The conversation dragged on for more 20 minutes. Boria fell off paranoid theories, and I, with a new hum here, and I understand there, guided him gently where I wanted to. In the end, he himself convinced himself. His grandfather's suspicions were unfounded, and I, only a single mother with her own demons. The beauty of manipulation is to make others come to their conclusions alone. I never lied directly about my innocence, I just created the scenario to take the right conclusions. Kira's progress reports became another tool. When Dr. Ruvenska noted that she slept better and tolerated baths, I shared the news. With the family. Finally, it gets better. The nightmares diminished. You don't scream so much in the bathtub. It worked at various levels. I showed my dedication to the daughter, not revenge, remembered the damage they had caused, and I reinforced my image of selfless mother, with very different priorities. The family's finances plummeted in spiral. In spring, Anna started selling everything on Avito: jewelry, electronics, better time bags. Semyon had to get rid of the car to prevent it from being auctioned by Ninherias. The bailiffs had already blocked the accounts. Now I went to job interviews at Kalina borrowed from the mother-in-law. I had to sell the grandma ring. Anna whimpered on a meeting, the one who wanted to give her daughter. At least there was something to sell, said Diana. I lost everything in the bankruptcy process. Even my grandmother's tea game. The suffering was palpable but insufficient. The financial ruin was just the first act. The next blow should reach deeper: the sanity, the reputation, the ties that kept them standing. In March, I launched the second phase, the attack on its position in the city. Small cities live with gossip and connections, which makes them vulnerable to strategically planted information. The scandal in the church had already stained the mother's image among the faithful. But I wanted the waves to spread. I started to go to different parishes, weaving conversations about confidence and responsibility. A sad story in St. Michael's Undera, let out between a sip of tea and another after the Mass, makes thinking. How far do we know those we trust our donations to? He never mentioned his mother directly, but the plot was fixed: diversion of church funds. This, people remember for years. In the supermarket where Anna got a job, the problems did not start with Anonymous, but with colleagues. Someone unintentionally found that the new box came from a with historical family. The gossip spread to the employee room. Manager Kos looked at her like a time bomb. Who needs trouble? Semyon opportunities evaporated after potential employers received friendly warnings of unknown refers. Mr. Stepanov's family is involved in criminal schemes. It can be clean, but reputational laughter, you understand. To the emails, links were attached to public sources. All verifiable. And the RHS would rather not risk it. Uncle Leonid's social isolation worsened. He tried to use contacts to solve issues with the recipe, to no avail. After a complaint of discriminatory practices leaked in their business, the partners began to avoid it. The final blow was an anonymous letter to the Chamber of Commerce: doubtful methods of Mr. Vlasov. His affiliation with the business club was quietly revoked. Leonie became toxic, I heard at a meeting. Before it was ours, now, better maintain distance. Social death is slower than financial, but much more devastating. Money recovers. Reputation in province? Never. Boria's academic future hung for a thread. Anonymous denunciations to his conditional officer on alcohol consumption made control over him asphyxiating. For a convict in parole, each slip was a step to prison. Boria tried to bribe the officer Uyi, 15,000 for flexibility. She took the money and doubled the surveillance. Each lack approached the bars. Diana, in turn, bumped into closed doors when looking for work in restaurants. Your reputation preceded her as an inescapable shadow. No letters of recommendation or detailed explanations were needed in a small town. Everyone knew exactly who she was. Oh, the one there? The one that had the audited accounting and found a break that didn't even fit the paper? The eyes turned off, the doors closed before it even opened his mouth. Sorry, but we prefer not to risk it. The company required surgical accuracy, and each rejection was only the logical echo of its own choices. I didn't have to forge evidence. Just ensuring that the right information came to the right people at the right time. Kira's spring holidays gave me the necessary time. While she spent her days at Metallurg's urban camp, I had full hours to adjust the last details. Mom works hard, Kira once told psychologist Yurovinskaya, with a frankness that hurt. When I sleep, it stays on the computer late. The therapist, with her professional delicacy, noted, Kira misses her presence at night. She needs you. I adjusted my routine at the same time. First, time with my daughter. Only then, the rest. His well-being was the only priority he would never negotiate even while, methodically, it dismantled the lives of those who had tried to destroy it. Even the spring, Anna and Seaman's apartment was already in auction. 6 months of default, court proceedings, tax enforcement. Seaman's construction company went bankrupt in a bureaucratic and merciless procedure. Anna got a job at Magnet for 20,000 rubles. I can't even buy a decent birthday gift for Kira, whimpered on her mother. Seaman was talking about moving to his mother-in-law's house, but the old woman hated him. The lawyers ate all the economies of Mom. We had to borrow. The process of diversion of funds threatened a real penalty, and the public defender, paid with crumbs, barely looked at the case. Why work hard? Anna aged 10 years in 6 months. White hair, deep wrinkles, recurring nightmares with overcrowded cells, cheap disinfectant smell and 3-story beds. You're a thief, Diana spitlessly, uncomfortable. Now we all carry this brand. A stain that doesn't come out. The civil proceedings filed by the radio factory against his father dragged himself in parallel to the criminal. Company lawyers acted as a machine, blocked accounts, ban on selling or transferring goods. He moved to a decrepit building in Bumaznaya, surviving with the unemployment allowance of 8,000 rubles from which bailiffs still discounted a slice. 40 years on the factory floor, muttered during rare family dinners. 40 years breaking their backs, and they threw me out like a rag. For a shit difference in the books. Uncle Lyonia's empire collapsed for good. Revenue and the prosecutor squeezed to the last drop, fines of 1.5 million, mandatory courses of financial tolerance, pledged pensions. I built these apartments from scratch. I howled, like a scratched album. 30 years sweating, now what? Because of some anonymous rolls. Diana declared personal bankruptcy. 6 months of proceedings, a conviction for salary fraud, a fine of 200,000 and 150 hours of community services. On weekends, he rubbed floors in the popular kitchen. During the week, it knocked from door to door. I had 8 employees, he sobbed at family meetings. Now not even the Vikusno Itoka wants me. Because of this damn criminal record. Boria's expulsion from the university meant the loss of the extension of military service and student funding. Drug conditional, mandatory treatment with a narco, and the final blow, the unanimous rejection of postgraduate and employers. The girlfriend changed him for a boy without dirty past. My life ended before starting, he repeated, while washing his hands until they bleed. All because of a shitter. Weber raised his hands frustrated. No evidence of a mandate, no trail of payment. His final report was evasive. Sometimes the circumstances are cruelly aligning. A chain of misfortunes, not an orchestrated campaign. The family paid their fees on time. Conspiracy theories persisted, but there was no money for another investigation. Tried to fix an ADV. OED decent by indication. Everyone asked for advance. No guarantee, no service. Kira, however, flourished. The nightmares rare. Gradually, she was relying on the water again, first with her fingers, then with her wrists, until one day she plunged her whole arms into the tub, panting but victorious. Ruvenskaya praised his progress, an impressive resilience for such a young child. Traumas like that would break many adults. Kira started asking questions about that day. The memory returned into fragments. The push, the water closing over its head, the suffocating panic. "Mom, why did they do that?" he asked one night as I wrapped her in the blanket. "Some people don't think about the consequences," I said, choosing every word. "They don't think how their actions destroy others. Do they regret it?" I didn't lie. I doubt it. But it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that we're safe. She nodded seriously, absorbing a lesson that many adults would never understand. The second phase of the plan began the following year: crush what was left of their assets, their connections, any thread of dignity that still ensured. My mother's trial has dragged on for over a year. Investigation, first instance, appeal. The sentence only came out in May, the perfect timing for maximum exposure. I cultivated contacts with local journalists, feeding them with wires that connected all cases of the family. The story was irresistible, an entire clan sunk in the mud. Family crime, as relatives transformed fraud into tradition, the series of reports in Izvestia Udmurtii stamped. 3 editions with photos, sentences of sentences, testimonials of jurists about the white-collar crime in the province. The publications were the final blow. Anna's colleagues in the Magnet whispering behind her back. The faithful of the cathedral crossed the street as he saw it. My father's glass companions stopped answering their calls. "They treat us like lepers," said Anna in an intercepted call. Boys threw eggs in Seaman's car. In my mother's garage, someone painted thief with spray. Social isolation fed paranoia, depression, alcohol. Anna started drinking before lunch. Seaman spent days in bed. My grandmother had 2 panic seizures in a week. The ambulance became a routine visit. "Maybe we should disappear from the city," suggested Seaman in a particularly dark family council. "What money, you idiot?" he growled. My father. "We are drowned in debt. No work, no credit, no way out." Weber, after all, was right in one thing: his problems really accumulated as an avalanche. He only made a mistake by calling them from chance. Each disaster was calculated to detonate at the most vulnerable time, such as explosive cargo in a controlled demolition. Kira's 10th anniversary celebrated with simplicity: some school friends, her parents, a homemade Napoleon cake. Play in the backyard, laughs, the afternoon sun warming the faces. Pure happiness, something my family never knew how to value. "This is the best birthday of my life," said Kira, tearing the roll as an enthusiasm. His smile was genuine, radiant. I watched her as she laughed with her friends as she plunged her feet with caution in the inflatable pool near the porch. He still hesitated before entering the water. Still held breathing for a second more. But I was getting it. My phone vibrated. A news notification. The cathedral accountant had been sentenced to 2 years in a common basis. My mother's sentence, after all the appeals, had finally residential judicature. The judge highlighted the abuse of trust and lack of remorse as aggravating. My mother ran after certificates of good behavior, letters of useless neighbors. It was no use. Another message: Anna and Seaman's apartment was sold at auction for half the value of an market. The mother-in-law, in the end, refused to shelter them. Rented a room in a Kommunalka inn. An Zavoltsi worker neighborhood, where the air smelled of burnt oil and abandoned dreams. The cardboard walls did not drown out the shouts of drunk neighbors, nor the cry of children who, like Anna, learned the weight of shame early. The collective cuisine, divided between 8 families, was a ring of tensions, disputed pots, contempt looks, the sour smell of life that never took place. The father's trial was scheduled for August, and the factory lawyers had already written the verdict in their tired looks. Irrefutable evidence, they repeated, as if justice were an assembly line. The public defender, overloaded with 20 simultaneous processes, whispered to Seaman the only way out: recognize guilt. Change dignity for a few years less. Cruel irony to a man who had passed decades denying shelter to those who knocked on his door. Now he was the one who begged for mercy. D, the uncle who never knew what compassion was sentenced to 300 hours of community work in a homeless shelter. Destiny has a black humor, who for years closed doors to the needy, now sweeping the floor where they slept, listening to stories of despair that previously ignored with a wave of hand. Boris, the prodigy son, saw his options reduced to crumbs. The Polytechnic Institute accepted him since he paid. Parents signed a loan with interest of 18% per year, a financial trap that would drown them for decades. The criminal record limited his choices. No prestigious company wanted him, no girl agreed to go out with him. The military call was already awaiting him, sealing his future with the stamp of disappointment. Diary, the sister who dreamed of Michelin stars, saw her debt empire to crumble. The restaurant was auctioned by cents, the creditors led to the copper cookware that it had been showing so much. Now, was washing dishes on Teriomark for 8,000 rubles per month, half a minimum wage. Its fingers, once agile to decorate dishes, were cracked by the cheap detergent. Culinary is art, she used to say. Now art was to survive. 2 years. It was the time that took to the castle of letters collapse, piece by piece. Each consequence was born from the previous one as a family curse. I did not need to forge evidence or bribe judges. It was enough to connect the points they themselves left in sight, like breadcrumbs leading to the abyss. I love you, Mom, Kira whispered, squeezing me with a strength that almost hurt. Me too, my daughter. More than anything in this world. As his little friends ran through the backyard, I observed the result of my work. My family tried to destroy us and laughed, certain that impunity was a right of blood. They were wrong. Justice does not use toga. Sometimes it wears the patience of those who wait for the right moment, the accuracy of who knows where to poke. Weber's card was still in my pocket, a reminder of how they came close to unmasking me, but failed for the same reason that condemned them, the contempt. They thought I was too weak to retaliate. Kira laughed, a pure sound that echoed where before there was only screams. This is how a family should sound, with joy, not sarcasm, with love, not with indifference. The phone vibrated again. This time, it was the news that the director of Strojfirma would be tried for social security fraud, Article 159 of the Penal Code. Siemens bankruptcy opened a Pandora box, schemes with subcontractors, bribes, counterfeit documents, things I didn't even imagine exist. Sometimes the best revenge is simply to get out of their way and let them drown in their own poison. I just gave a little push. Mom, look. Kira held out her hand, where a use butterfly had landed, wings oranges fluttering in the sun. Beautiful, I agreed. And free, she added, observing the creature's flight until she disappears beyond the wall. No. There was sadness in his eyes, only admiration. Some things are born to fly, not to be imprisoned. That day, by the lake, they tried to break us with cruelty disguised as authority. It took time to understand that some wounds do not know without charge, some debts grow with compound interest. The birthday party followed, full of laughs and chocolate cake. The contrast to the family encounters from before was brutal. Here there was affection, there, just control. Here he heals, there, scars. When the sun settled, I felt something I had not experienced for months, a deep, almost physical satisfaction. It was not the empty joy of a victory, but the certainty that the balance had finally balanced. Their lives were in ruins, their own construction, accelerated by my hands. Years would be necessary to rebuild if they had the strength for it. Kira, however, would grow strong, surrounded by those who value her, not by those who see her as a disposable toy. The butterfly chose right, freedom instead of the cage, the flight instead of the fall, the beauty instead of brutality. Just like us.